Hi, everyone. Welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Karissa Dean, and today we have Ash Yates with us. Do you like going by Ashley or Ash?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, all right. I call her Ash.
I go by Ash a lot more. I never used to. I actually hated it, and so it was like a challenge to me to go by Ash more, and so now I go by Ash.
Okay. All right. I was just like, oh, maybe she wants to be called Ashley. Anyways, Ashley is here. And she's been on the podcast before talking with us about, financial health, which I think is such an important topic for people to understand. One of the things that I love about Ashley is that she doesn't teach like a cut and paste format. Really, the way that she approaches the well-being of wealth, let's say it that way, is by finding what it means to you. So she really helps people identify what wealth means for them, how they can acquire it, and what their relationship is with money and all the things. So I'm excited for this conversation today. Is there anything that I missed in that intro, Ashley, that you would want to add on?
No, you nailed it. I should just get you on staff. That was great.
Well, I think what you do is really important. And I know for my own personal development journey, understanding what money meant to me and what wealth meant to me and how I wanted money to work for me was huge. And understanding this hot topic, because what we're going to talk about today is, we should have thought of a title before we pressed record, but basically I think we're going to be talking about secrecy. With the finances, the secrecy of finances. And I know, and I have personal experience with this. I remember when I first got into the, coaching world 5 years ago, I made a lot of investments into coaching, that I didn't tell my partner about. And so there were credit card bills that I was like, oh, fuck, let me get to that first. Because Nigel and I, our finances are completely separate. So I'd love to talk about that too in this podcast episode, because I think that there's a slippery slope with having joint account and also separate. I see the benefits, but again, like this is why you're coming on, is because I think it's important for everyone to understand what works for them. So like what works for me and Nigel is the separate accounts and everything. Like we can see each other's stuff, but it's like, he didn't have a debit card to my account. I don't have a debit card to his account. We have joint checking for business, that kind of stuff. Credit cards are not commingled. And that's what works best for us. But tell me what comes up for you when I say secrecy in finance.
So it is one of the most common things that I handle between couples, is the secrecy and the miscommunication between money. Because we have to remember, we have not just our own relationship, our tormented relationship typically with money. We now have a spouse who has their own very unique and individual, unique, tormented relationship with money. And then we just try to come together. And so oftentimes that just doesn't go smooth, shockingly. But it's very common. I'm dealing with it. So right now I'm focusing a lot on helping people get out of debt, creating actual realistic budgets and debt plans to try to overcome. And a lot of that, though, I can make you a plan. I can tell you exactly which way to pay off money, but we have to rebuild habits for it to be successful. And a lot of the habits that I am working through with couples right now specifically is the fact that we have a lot of secrecy going on between spending habits, credit cards. A lot of it's credit cards that like the other spouse aren't even aware are there. And so it's being built up, and the minimum payments just kind of start hitting the account. And for a lot of people, that can take months to even notice.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden we have what one couple thinks is their debt, and then the reality of how much they're actually, like if you combine it all together, how much they're actually in once all of the numbers start to come out and the audit gets done on the bank account. They're like, wait, what's this payment to Capital One or Chase? And they're like, I don't even have a Chase credit card. And it's like, well, someone does.
Yeah. And it's scary to think about.
Yeah.
because I know my situation's unique. We have multiple properties. Well, all those properties have different deductions that we apply for. We have different tax benefits, different ways of doing the taxes. So like every property we have is its own unique business and has its own accounting. But even for Joe Schmo, like our main house, right, it's chaotic how much actually needs to go through those accounts. I mean, just living is expensive. And like today I made a note before I started recording. I'm like, I gotta call the plumber because our shower's not draining. I gotta call the electrician because our AC isn't working. Like it's just like it's never ending. And so if you're not in your finances every day, or you're not organizing them like a business, it's so easy for it to slip through the cracks. So what comes up for you when you're talking about getting a grasp on looking at statements to kind of like get ahead of some of these like habits that you were talking about?
Right. Well, and the reality is that the moment that we are overwhelmed by anything, whether it be debt, whether it be money, we retract and we avoid. That's just our human nature. And so I would say 9 out of my 10 clients on the regular that I work with are not checking they have completely detached themselves. And as long as their card approves, they just deal with the aftermath. And as long as the payment goes through, they just deal with the aftermath. And so even just building the habit of like, no, like I know it feels really old school. I don't need you to print the statement anymore if you don't want to print it, but we need to go through our account and see what's there every single month. And just saying that, like, you watch eyes glaze over because they don't want to. And I get it. Like, unless you're me, I understand this is not a fun task, but we have to understand where our money is going, because that's where patterns, that's where we get to like fully understand what's happening. And that's where it's, again, I love it. So when I go through accounts, I'm like, oh, did you notice that you always do this, this, and this on Tuesdays? What happens on Tuesdays? Oh, Tuesdays are when you actually have to go have the child custody changes and you go drop kiddo off with your ex-husband and you spiral. And so now you go get a coffee and you go blow $300 every single Tuesday. Did we know we were doing that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, do you see the habit that we have created in our brain to cope with the fact that we have to go drop our kiddo off with dad? And we just don't know those things. And so it's less about somebody like me or even you going through to be mad at yourself. And that's what everyone's just like, well, I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to like feel bad. It's less about that. It's more about how much knowledge we can extract from the information. That way, when you build yourself a plan, or when somebody builds you a plan around money, it actually, it works.
Well, you're aware of it, right? So like you drew this.
So next Tuesday, you're not going to go through the Starbucks line. You're going to push yourself to just go home and maybe meditate or journal or do something differently. And we just have to break the habit now. And now I've saved you $300 a week on shit you didn't want.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, especially when you think about when you said like people are retracting, they're avoiding, they're like kind of in that avoiding habit. So kind of what you're saying is that the first thing to establish a habit is to become aware of what the habit is, right? And so unconscious spending, right?
Right. We can't change and make new habits if we don't know what your current habits are.
Right. And I think about that all the time with how quick and easy it is to order something on Amazon, or to, just like get a Grubhub delivery or whatever it is. It's like they've made it so easy, especially on social media, right? To just like click the link and suddenly I've paid for it and I didn't even have to get my wallet. Like,
yeah. Oh, heck, now they have all the things where they'll just break that up into 4 payments for you too. Like, why pay the whole thing once? We'll make it even easier. We'll break it up into 4 payments. It is. And that's where it's also that knowledge of understanding how much. I mean, you have to remember, all these companies spend billions of dollars to figure out the psychology of what's going to make you spend money. This isn't just like, they're not just throwing shit against a wall and hoping it works. Like, they have teams of people figuring out how to make you maximize the amount of money you're going to spend. They are going to make it as easy as possible to take your money these days. And even that knowledge is kind of helpful, because you're like, do I want to be taken like that?
Exactly.
I want to be used in that way. Stop getting in my head about this.
I love that. Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, I say that all the time for social media, right? They have teams of people creating social media so that we're addicted, so that we stay on the app. I mean, if we just draw our awareness to some of these things, we can be more intentional. So we're talking about, people contracting, changing habits. What are the things that you think get people in a sticky situation? Like, what are they afraid of?
What are they afraid of? One, they're afraid of acknowledging, because our brain, what does our brain want? It wants dopamine. It wants happiness. And at the end of the day, we've now built these little trips to the stores and these ways to bring in that. And so we're afraid of, we're having to not be happy. At the end of the day, that's all our brain is seeking, is happiness. We've just made it the wrong way. And then on the top of it, there's also that shame. I mean, back to like the partner conversation, we know we should not be spending this money. It's an addiction. And I hate attributing it to that, but it is, right? If we're doing something secretly, not telling our spouse, hiding the evidence of it to chase a thrill or a rush, it may just be a Target trip and not alcohol or drugs, but we're still doing all the same habits towards the shopping. And so then once we even have kind of like realized, well, now we're even in more of a panic, because now we really don't want to have to fess up to our spouse that we have a secret credit card that, maybe $35 a month is going on it, but it's actually got $1,000. It's constantly maxed out at $1,000 every single month, and it's fueling all of these things. Like now we're in like the carousel of shame spiral, I call it, because now we really don't want to have to fess up to it, because they're going to be like, well, how long have you had this? What do you mean you've been doing this every month for 2 years? Or what do you mean that you invested $20,000 into your new business? We didn't even have a conversation about it. Like, you didn't think 20,000 was worth coming to me? Because we know if our spouse had done that, right? If our spouse had invested $20,000 into a brand new business and didn't tell us, we would have been like, excuse me, how dare you?
Right. So what are you walking people through? I mean, for me, like when I think about, okay, I invested into this coach, I didn't really tell Nigel the full spectrum of it. And, eventually, like it gets to a point where you feel so guilty or shameful around it. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, part of that work with me and Nigel was understanding what wealth meant to us independently and coming together on like, actually, this is how we want to be going forward. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And that's really, step one is the awareness, right? We have to know where you currently are. Not the fake version that you're going to try to give me in the beginning, because everybody does that. Not the fake shit, where you really are, right? And that's where even in the beginning, the whole idea is to really start defining, one, what is wealth to you? So then we have to figure this out. What is each of your own wealth and money definitions? What is that together? Because to your point, I don't like, it's not rare, but I'm not the person who's going to tell you that combining all of your finances is the right decision for you. I actually rarely say that. There are for sure times, but again, it's so customized to what makes sense for you. So it's not about just this like, oh, this is the one. No, we have to decide, like, as a couple, as a partnership, what does it mean to you? And then we have to develop and build and determine, what do those tweaks look like then? How do we take the two current versions of you? How do we tweak all of those current relationships, those current habits, and how do we then grow them up together? And so it's so it's so close to identity-based stuff and identity shifts and all the same things. It's just around money, right? We have to, and it's deep. Money is so trauma-based. It's so deep, and it comes so far back into our life. So the beginning stages are all of that. And for so many people, they're like, I thought you were just going to tell me what order to pay my credit cards off in. And I'm like, yeah, no, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We're working on it. Yeah, I can do that too.
Also, go with the highest interest first.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Or like look at moving it around a little bit. But it's interesting. So when you're working with people, we're talking about healing, and we're talking about that identity, that changing what it means to you. I want to talk more about this because I think there's like, I know for me, when it finally came to a point where I was like, oh my God, I have to tell Nigel about this credit card bill because I'm ass backwards in it. And it was really before I understood how money could really work in your favor. And if you have a good understanding of how money works, how interest rates work, how, you know, all the different lingos of banking, I guess would be the best way to say it. If you understand how to move your money, you can make it work for you. But if you don't look at it, I mean, it's the looking at it, right? But like, I didn't want to look at my money because I grew up learning from my mom who never looked at her money. I mean, I have like vivid memories of my mom getting money back at the grocery store, right? Because this is back in the day. She would write a check. She would write it for $20 over, right? So she gets her 20 and she literally just like takes it and shoves it in her wallet. So it's just like this ball of like not, there's no respect to it. She didn't respect. She didn't look at it, right? It was just like kind of there, but like she didn't pay attention to it. I remember my dad always being like, did you balance your checkbook? What do you mean a check bounced? You know? And so it's like the avoidance thing. Why are we avoiding it? Like, why, you know, what is it that you're recognizing with your clients, especially like, I think female based, right? Because we're breaking these patriarchal, you know, societal norms, right? Of where the man makes the money and the woman spends it, kind of a thing. So what are we healing here, really?
Well, and that's where it is so unique to everyone, right? You weren't hiding a credit card from Nigel just because you decided to tell Nigel to fuck off with the, you know, it's just because it wasn't his business. Like, you having to work through that was so much deeper than just the actual decision you made of hiding it. Like you see in there how far back you had to go to heal it. And that's the real work, is what are you really avoiding, right? One, we're always going to avoid things we don't feel like we're good at. And there is a very cultural and society expectation still for women that we are not good with our money. I mean, for crying out loud, like we have an entire, what people find humorous marketing campaign happening right now about girl math.
Yeah.
And it's so cutesy and it's all these different things, but like, it's all of us essentially just saying that we find ways to blow additional money and justify it.
Right.
I mean, when you really get down to the root of it, girl math is us spending too much money, but justifying it.
Right.
And there's still such even out there in today's day that, you know, women we spend too much money. We like to shop, yada, yada, yada. And so it's okay as a woman to just be like, oh, I'm not good with money. I just like spending it. And so you have society telling us that. You have all these things in your past telling us this. And so it becomes such an easy thing to just be like, oh, I'm not good with money.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear people say that every day. I'm just not good with money. What do you mean? What do you fucking mean you're not good with money? What does that mean?
Well, that would be like the equivalent of somebody saying, well, I'm just not good at driving. But then they still go out and drive. Like, get fucking good at it. And then drive.
Oh, I'm not good at eating. I'm not good at, it's like, what? So you have to get better. We're going to spend our entire life with money. Like, there's no avoiding it.
No.
I mean, there's very few ways of avoiding it, I guess, any responsibility with money. And I mean, so one of the not funniest, but one of the phrases that really gets me is when people want to be financially free. I'm like, what does that mean?
What does
free mean? Right. Financially free. Oh, I'm financially free. Okay. What does that mean? Do you know who's financially free? Children, because they have zero obligations when it comes to money. Yeah. Do you know who else is financially free? People who don't have control of their money. People who literally, from a court perspective, get their rights taken away to manage their own money. That
Britney
person
Spears
is financially free. Britney's in her conservatorships. Yeah. That is financially free. There's no one else on the planet who was ever going to be financially free. But it's like, that's what we're working towards. And it's like, no, be like good with your money. Be respectful to your money. It's okay to want security. it's okay to, you know, want to be able to walk into a store and never have to have that kind of like little weird fear
Right.
of like, is my card going to get declined? Like, that's
Yeah.
okay. Like,
Yes.
that's something we want to strive towards that. We want to know that we can retire happily. We want to know that if our child gets engaged or wants to go to college, that maybe we can throw a few bucks at it and not have it bankrupt us. Like, there's
Right.
so many goals and dreams we can aspire to be, but like, we're all shooting for this like fake financially free metaphor that has never made sense to me.
Well, I don't think it makes sense, because even if you have a house and let's say you've paid your mortgage off, you're still acquiring bills. I mean, literally,
Right.
probably the only financially free person is somebody who's living off grid, completely living off the land, like out in the boonies, no
Right.
electricity, no water, like no, they're not buying
don't
produce. They're
Right.
making
They
their
don't
own
even have to go into
clothes.
town to make, right.
Yeah.
It's like, and how really, I mean, at the end of the day, how many people can we truly say are that off the grid? Like, I know there are people who are off the grid,
Yeah.
but they still find ways to get internet. They still find ways to make money to pay for things like
Right.
going into town for clothes and shoes.
Right.
Like, that would even make you not financially free.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not really a thing. That's so interesting. That's such a, I mean, I feel like we could talk about that forever, but I want to talk about when you said, I'm just not good with it. I think I'm just looking back, you know, because all I can share is really my own experience or experiences I've had with clients. And I've heard this statement a lot, and I know that I've said it too. I'm just not good with it. And so how do you approach someone who is like so avoidant and has decided to put on this armor of I'm just not good with it?
Yeah. And so one, I mean, thankfully when someone's coming to me, it's like, okay, you're willing to give me money. So now we have to decide, is this just going to be another impulse buy that you started avoiding me and ignoring me? And like, and I'll call, and I straight up ask that. And I'm like, we need to have a conversation, because I just going to become the next thing on your regret list? Because we have to, like, it's okay for you to tell me that you're not good with money. If you truly think that all of your past decisions are not good with money, it's okay to say that. I can disprove it, because we can always find good. And so one of the very first exercises when we're trying to kind of figure out where their map is, like where their journey with money is, I ask them before they even, like, what mistakes have you made? But like, can you give me 5 times where you were proud of yourself with money? Like, what 5 things have you accomplished in your life? And there's always going to be things like, we have to just flip the script. Like, we have to start finding the success, even if there was pain through it. And then we have to also just be willing to say, I'm not good with money and I'm going to change that.
Right. Right.
We have to just, instead of there being a period there, it has to become a comma.
Yeah.
I'm not good with money and I'm going to change that. And that's the biggest work, is that's just not the end of your sentence. We have to edit that.
Well, it's so interesting how many people just decide, well, I'm in debt, I'm going to be in debt forever. It's like, there is a path out, actually. There is a path out, you know?
Right.
And I think that
there's a certain level of like, yeah, we should stop being so damn afraid of being in debt, because there are some really strategic reasons to be in debt sometimes, for sure. So there's a lot of like releasing that weight, but also like, there's that side of it, which isn't where they're coming from. They're actually coming from the, like, I've just given up and this is my life. I'm never going to get ahead because I'm just going to be buried in debt forever. And it's like, well, no.
Yeah.
Like, even as Americans, we have the right to go file bankruptcy. Like, no, you can get out of debt. Like,
yeah, you can definitely get out of it. You can definitely just walk away and be like, I'm not Susie, I'm Karen.
Right. I mean, we watch commercial or big companies do it every single day. Like, bankruptcy is a strategy. It's not even anything more than that. Like, bankruptcy is a strategy.
Yeah. Well, and I find it interesting. I mean, you and I have geeked out on debt a lot before, and it was funny. I'm reading this book and they were talking about Lego in, I want to say it was early 2000s. Lego was like $12 billion in debt. And they just changed their marketing plan to be more curious about stuff. And 12 years later, they're out of debt. And so I think what I took away from reading that, just that like short, Lego story was like, they simply just got curious about what isn't working and they changed their strategy.
Yeah. Right. It's right. We're in debt, period, became we're in debt, comma, and now it's time to get curious. Like, it's just.
Yeah. Because it can always get better, even the worst of the worst. I mean, it's just about curiosity. I always feel like, and I think, as somebody who's always got a minor amount of debt, and has paid off thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, it's like the moment I was able to heal the relationships to what does that even mean? Like, what does the word debt mean? And then looking at all the positive things that have come because I made
come from it.
Yeah. And so it really is, I love that, adding the comma. So we're talking about this in secrecy. And I think there's a lot of women out there carrying a heavy burden here. What would you say to them?
One, we have to come clean. We have to be willing to sit down and have the conversation. The same way that if your spouse was doing this, you would want them to come clean. You'd want to know. You'd want to be able to walk and help them through this. So that's the number one thing, is like, we can't, even when I have somebody come to me, because I don't always work with couples. Sometimes just one will come to me and it'll start with, I need to get this taken care of before I have to tell my spouse. And I'm like, we get to tell the spouse.
Yeah.
We have to. And I'm willing to go on and I'm willing to FaceTime and do the whole thing with you while we develop the plan. But like, we have to figure this out together, because if you're willing to do it once, you're usually willing to do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can get you out of this debt, that's not going to stop it from happening in 12 months again. I mean, it's not that we can't change, right? We can always change, and we can always change our habits. But if you are going to someone or even to yourself to, quote, fix a habit, but you're not willing to actually work through how you got that habit, you're not really going to fix it. You're just going to bury the evidence.
Yep. Guilty. I will admit it. I have no shame here, because I think the version of me 5 years ago, it was fucking hard. But the moment I sat down and had that difficult conversation, and I was like, so business hasn't been going very good, and I didn't tell you, and But what happens is you really start, the less secrets you have in your marriage. I mean, this is like not just money, but the less secrecy you have, the more stable your partnership becomes. And so what I noticed is as scary as it was to have that conversation around, hey, I took a few risks. They didn't fucking pencil. I didn't get the ROI I was hoping for. Here's where I'm at. Right. It's not that he was like, oh, well, let me just write you a check and here you go. Like, that's not what happened. But what happened is we both started to become more transparent about what his money was doing, what my money was doing. And then we looked ahead and we were like, okay, if in 10 years we want to retire and we want to live a certain way, how do we get there? And so we started to create the plan. And so when you have that longer term vision as partners, it's like you both can walk that walk together. And it's not that it's perfect, because it's not always perfect. I mean, Nigel has a brand new Mustang sitting in the driveway that I'm just like, and that investment was good for,
and that was made
but so it's not a tit for tat either, though. I can also look at that and be like, well, you've worked your ass off for a really long time. And that's the first time that you went and were frivolous with money. But it's like, because we got that initial conversation out of the way, it actually avoids a lot more arguments, I think, down the line. I think we argue so much less about money.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's regardless of even if it's for business, right? Because sometimes, we go into debt for business, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have that credit card, we just, it's almost always either it's a brand new one that you opened and your spouse doesn't know about, or it's like one of the very first credit cards you ever got. It's like the really small one that you still just have in your back pocket. It's like the little secret, it's like little dirty secret card.
Yeah.
And you have all the other joint cards that you've established with your spouse, but you still have that one. And again, it's okay to have the one, but it's the one that like you just can't stop. It doesn't even make sense to use. It doesn't have good rewards. It doesn't even have that high of a limit because it's just one of those really old ones. And so it's like just this dirty little secret that we have, but we pull it out. Again, there's always going to be those reasons why.
Right.
I've had them with every relationship because because of my trauma with relationships, I always needed to make sure I had an exit plan if something went wrong. If I had to leave, I needed to be able to leave. So we always have the different reasons why we do it. But then I would find myself just like, oh, well, I'm having a rough day. Like he pissed me off today. So I bought myself a new pair of shoes on that card. Like, could I have put it on our normal card? Of course. But again, the habit of it being my getaway card meant that if him and I were having a rough day, the shopping got put on that card. Like, how's that so deep and subconscious?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I've spent, it was a rough month. I spent $500 this month on random crap just because I was mad. Shoot. So now am I transferring $500, which he's going to see and be like, where is that going? Like where's $500? Or am I going to make a $35 payment on it because now I can hide it?
Yeah.
And it's going to take forever now to pay it off.
Yeah,
because
like
I'm slowly trying to siphon money to it. And it's like, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
And it's so common. And so we have to have those conversations though, because all it is just like a peek into our heart.
Right.
And now we know as a couple, hey, when things go rough, like my trauma response is to go do something really independent and go spend money on my card.
Right.
Like and all these. And so now we get to work through those things. And now we get to, as a couple, actually grow. We have to know those. And everyone does it. Like we also, especially as women, we go through this like weird phase where we think like only we have these problems and our spouse doesn't.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But do you not think in these conversations that things aren't going to come up that your spouse also does? Like you're both doing it. It's not just women.
No, it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, Nigel has a weird relationship with money. I think we all do. But once I understood what his relationship was and he understood what my relationship was, it's like now we're tag teaming and I love what you said. We're supporting and growing together, which I think is, I mean, what else do you want in a partnership?
Exactly. And to know those things, right? Like even with where we are, like those moments are still going to come up, right? If him and I are having an argument that he knows where are you going? You're running an errand? Are you running an like, where are you going, honey? Because he knows like I'm sneaking out to go stress shop. Yeah. And he's, he has one, he's commissioned. So his paychecks are not regular. They can be wherever, whenever. It doesn't matter how much credit we have available. It doesn't matter how much is in the bank account. If something happens where like his commission check gets like delayed, like could be delayed a couple days or a week or whatever, it just hasn't come in yet. All of a sudden I'll be like, hey, you want to go grab tacos tonight? We have no money. We don't? Where did all of our money go? Where'd it go? He just like, if something delays, it's like in his mind, it's like halt, stop.
We're broke. Yeah.
No spending can take place. And I'm like, so we can't go get tacos? I'm really craving tacos.
Yeah. We also might need a margarita now too.
Right. And now I know, I'm like, okay, hey, now I know to step back and go, hey, do you want to go over our budget really quick? Are things delayed? Is there something you need to tell me? And he's like, oh yeah, my commission check's going to be a week. Like, cool. Would you like to look at the numbers to know that we can indeed afford tacos still? Yeah. Instead of going to a restaurant for tacos and spending $100, would you feel better about just like going to one of the taco trucks and spending $20? Like, I just want tacos. I don't care where they're from.
Right. Yeah.
But with, so now, not even with that, like I can support him and be like, hey, that's stressful. I get it. Even if we have it, like that's really stressful. Let's just go hit up a taco truck then.
Yeah.
Like I just want tacos in my mouth. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's all, I mean, I think, the things that I've learned in my relationships since I got curious about money and started really playing with what's my relationship with it, not just understanding moving money, interest, all that bullshit. I mean, like 5 years ago, I actually got curious about my relationship to money.
Yep.
It's the vulnerability and it's the communication that has changed, but it's changed every aspect of my relationship with everyone around me because I'm more aware and I'm more cautious about how I say things too, right? Mm-hmm. Because I know what is going to trip him up. And so that's the vulnerability. Like it took him getting vulnerable with me so that I knew what not to say, right? So you didn't just like throw back an argument of like, fuck you, I just want to have fucking tacos. What's wrong? Like it didn't
put on my secret credit card.
Yeah, it didn't become this big argument. It was like that vulnerability breakdown. And then that line of communication is open and you're communicating more effectively because of it.
Right. Because exactly.
Yeah. What else do you want people to know? Because you're totally right. It's not just women who are wandering around with secrecy. What do you want them to know?
I mean, the biggest thing is that when you find yourself making those comments, I'm not good with money, or I'm never going to get out of debt, always dig deeper and get rid of the period and put a comma there, because we get to work through things. We get to be good with money. We get to be worthy of money. We get to hold onto our money. We get to have success with our money. And if you find yourself saying anything to the contrary, then it's time to do some work. It's time to dig in and figure out why we have those beliefs, because we get to we get to have no debt if we want no debt. We get to not be afraid of debt. We get to make money. We get to hold money. We get to be good with money. You get to be good with money. Like everybody gets to be good with money. It's not like some secret club that you just never get a ticket into. You can be good with money.
Yeah, definitely.
And it all starts, like, words are so powerful. So stop saying those words, or at least, again, step one is always just acknowledge those words and add the comma.
Yeah, I love it. Do you have any programs or anything happening right now? I know you ran an epic program. Maybe you're going to rerun it. I don't know. I'm just doing a little plug. I heard how amazing it was. What do you have that people can, get in touch with you for? What are you doing right now?
Yeah. So I have everything from, I will just give you the numbers. I will give you the plan. I will dig through your finances for you and show you the way out, right? If you don't want to work on the habits, if you feel confident, I'll just do the numbers for you. Cause a lot of people, you don't have to love the numbers, guys. I get it. Yeah. I also have a 6-month program if you're truly ready to 100% dive in, where we not just go over the numbers, but we talk about the habits, we talk about the relationship, and it's kind of 6 months where I'll walk alongside you kind of as your bestie of like, hey, we're going to walk this together, because it's so much easier to rebuild things when you have that support. And then I always do one-on-one work, and that's whether you are a business owner or not. If you just want to have somebody monthly, we just meet monthly, so it's nothing too intense. We start by kind of developing the plan, and then we meet monthly together in a partnership to make sure we're sticking to it, we're tweaking it, we're kind of diving deeper, but also setting things up to where you're actually creating your new relationship with money and you're not becoming dependent on somebody else for you.
Right. Well, and I think that the thing is, what I was thinking about when you said the one-to-one, I'm going to be your bestie, the accountability is so important. Like if I hadn't shared where I was at and had that accountability, I probably would still be going backwards, because your mind loves to be like, it's fine, you'll just make more money, like you'll figure it out later, like blah, 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 blah. But it's like the accountability is huge. So what I would say to anybody listening to this is get over your fear and dive in, because it will change your life, and you're gonna actually feel, I can't even tell you the moment 5 years ago, the moment I was like, everything changed. And it's so much better.
It's always funny because it's always the first and the second call. It's not the first. It's always the second and maybe the third call with because again, it's monthly. I always get the comment, I was going to go on this weird shopping binge I noticed, but I didn't because I didn't want to have to get on the call and tell you that I did that. And I'm like, cool.
Amazing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And then by month 4, it's like I was going to, but then I realized what was really going on. And I was like, ooh, I love that. Because we went from I was going to, but I was afraid you were going to be upset, to I was going to and realized really I was just hurt because I had to go drop off my kid with my ex-husband. Now we have that where we've built the habit of actually being able to self-identify in the moment, slow down that time and be like, no, I'm going to make a different choice.
Oh my God.
And then by month 6, it's just like, oh my God, I'm so good with money. And I'm like, the fuck yes, you are.
Yes, I love that. That makes me so happy because I think, I know from my own story, and I know a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends, even women in business in general, you can be good with money. You get to be good with money, and fuck yes, you are good with money.
Right. And then you get to make so much that you don't actually have to manage your own money. Like, I'm not saying you have to manage your money for the rest of your life. Like, you actually get to make so much that you have people manage your money. Like, that's even more
Hell
fun.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really
That's
cool.
pretty cool
yes.
too.
I like that. Ashley, where can people connect with you if they want to hire you?
So I am on both Instagram and TikTok under Your Retired Banker.
Amazing. Ashley, thank you so much for joining the conversation. And we'll look forward to all your comments. For those who are listening, make sure that you like and follow everything Ashley, Your Retired Banker. And as always, every time you share this podcast, you're supporting me and the work that I do to help empower women. And today, we want you to know you're fucking good with money. So Get out there and get it done, ladies. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day, Ashley. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.